Imagine you're in a doctor's office. They hand you a small white pill. You swallow it, and a few moments later, you feel better. Except the pill was sugar. For decades, doctors know this happens. It's known as the placebo effect. What actually made the pain go away kept showing up in stress research, in what people felt after eating, in how kids performed on tests. The same mechanism appearing in places that look completely unrelated. So initially, I went looking for what was underneath all of this. But what I found was one of the 4 critical ideas you need to understand human life, and it goes much further than the small white pill. Let me show you what I found. 2 groups went through the same stressful task. But before they started, one group watched a short film about how stress can actually sharpen focus, help them. The other group watched a film about how stress can damage the body. And here's what they found. The group that was told that stress could help, their cortisol response stayed in a healthier range. They actually asked for more feedback after, and their bodies produced DHEA, a hormone that helps the brain recover and grow stronger from difficult experiences. And it kept showing up. Same person, same milkshake, 2 weeks apart. The only thing different, one time the label said 620 calories and the other time 140. And their hunger hormone, it's called ghrelin, it dropped to match the label, not the food. Again, 84 hotel workers across 7 hotels. Half of the workers got told that their daily work counted as exercise. The other half wasn't told anything. 4 weeks later, only the informed group lost weight. Lower body fat, lower blood pressure, same work. And again, okay, as someone who grew up in a house where school performance mattered more than almost anything, this really stuck with me. They took 2 groups of 5th graders and gave them slightly different praises. One group, you did great, you must be really smart. The other group, you did great, you must have worked really hard. That was it, 2 sentences. Then they gave both sets of kids harder and harder tests. The kids that were praised for being smart, they crashed. They felt miserable when they got something wrong. They thought failure meant that they were actually not smart. Kids praised for working hard, they didn't crash. They thought, I just need to work harder, I need to try a different strategy. And their scores actually improved as the exams got harder. 2 different sentences and 2 completely different outcomes. So the situation stays identical, activity stays the same, but the outcome changes. So what exactly is this magical factor that helps people lose weight, feel more full, take stress better, and solve difficult problems? That factor is belief. I know how that word lands, because belief for most of us is somewhere between religion and motivational stuff your aunt posts online. I felt the same way when I first started looking into this, and I almost dropped it. But the studies kept showing up. Hunger hormones dropping because of the label you read on a milkshake, weight loss in hotel workers who hadn't changed a thing about their work, stress somehow making people better, kids who got 2 slightly different sentences of praise ending up with completely different results. These weren't necessarily motivational studies. These were measurable physical changes happening in people's bodies because of what they believed. That made me take it seriously, so I kept looking. But before I show you how even more impactful beliefs are, I want to share with you how I've experienced this myself. Years ago, I was on a very different path. I was studying to be a doctor, but after 4 years, I realized the life of a physician wasn't the life I wanted. It was terrifying, but I chose to leave. At that point, I had spent years studying one thing. I didn't have any other clear skills. So I had to ask myself a simple question. What am I actually interested in? At the time, the only answer I had was fashion. I started over at the very bottom, working part-time at a clothing store. Even though it was a big step backwards, I kept the belief that if I treated that sales floor like a classroom, I could grow. Well, Well, most days. I kept that belief most days. I studied sales books and practiced every day, and things started to click. That belief took me from a part-time sales associate to a store manager, to moving abroad, to leading a department at the company's headquarters. Now, after 10 years, the chapter has closed, and I find myself back in a similar place asking, what's next? At each point of change, I felt a lot of uncertainty, just like I do now working on this. But even though it's really hard at times, I know that the belief I hold will affect the outcomes I ultimately get. But that raises a question that's been sitting underneath all of this. What is it about how our minds work that gives beliefs this much power? Why does this happen? This is what I found in my research, and honestly, I was quite surprised and fascinated by this. It's how our mind actually works. I want to share with you and then let the science fill in the details. Your brain is a storyteller you can't turn off. It's already writing what's going to happen next before it happens, based on every story it's been told before. The cup is going to feel warm. The room is going to be quiet. That shake, it's going to fill you up. I was praised for being smart. So if I fail at this, it means I'm actually not smart. Running ahead of reality, telling itself what's about to be true. And most of the time, the world cooperates. The cup is warm. You are full. You are smart. The story matches what shows up, so the story gets stronger. But when the story doesn't match, your brain has two options. It can change the story or it can change the world. That's it. Those are the two moves it has. Now let me show you how scientists figure this out. The storyteller in our heads wasn't easy to find. It took 7 different researchers across 145 years, each adding one piece to the puzzle until someone could pull it all together. Hermann von Helmholtz in the 1860s, he proved your brain doesn't record reality, it guesses it. The data your eye sends up is too messy to read directly, so your brain fills in the gaps using what it already expects to be true. It's the reason why you see black dots at the intersections. Your brain is guessing the color of that spot, and why you're able to see this square in 2 different orientations, because your brain is trying to guess the correct orientation. But that left a question. If the brain is guessing, then what is it guessing with? A century later, Hubel and Wiesel went looking for what brain cells actually do. They put electrodes in the visual cortex of cats and watched them fire. What they found was strange. Most cells refused to respond to almost anything. Each cell was waiting for one specific orientation. A horizontal line, a vertical line, a diagonal line. Everything else was ignored. They won a Nobel Prize for their work, but why is the brain this picky? Why throw away most of what your eyes send up? In 1992, David Mumford finds the first piece of the answer. He noticed something nobody had explained. In the brain, far more fibers run downward from higher areas of the brain towards the senses than upward from the senses. His proposal was, those fibers aren't carrying instructions, they're carrying predictions. The brain is constantly sending its best guesses down to the senses, and the senses' only job was to send up what doesn't match. But it was still a theory, no one had proven it. In 1999, 2 researchers decided to test it. They built a computer model with one rule. Each level predicts what the level below it is doing, and only the surprises get passed up. Then they showed it raw photos of nature and just watched. With no other instructions, the model started doing something no one programmed it to do. Its units started responding to specific orientations: horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. The exact same behavior Hubel and Wiesel found 40 years earlier. Then in 2005, Carl Friston pulls it all together. He calls it the free energy principle, and the idea is quite simple. To survive, every living thing must minimize surprise. When the prediction doesn't match what's happening, your brain only has 2 moves. It can update the story, change what it believes, or it can change the world, act, move, do something, until reality matches the story. Okay, that's a lot. And honestly, when I first started with this, it took me a while to absorb, because this is what we just said. Your brain isn't a window into reality. It's a prediction machine. And what it predicts comes from what you already believe. I was walking around assuming we're just observing the world. The idea that we're constructing it and having different outcomes just based on our belief isn't intuitive. It took me a moment. So let me bring it back to stuff you already experienced. Take anxiety. Kirsten actually pointed this out. Anxiety is what happens when your brain hits a prediction error it cannot resolve. Something in the world isn't matching the story and you can't seem to change the world or fix the story fast enough, so you stay stuck. The tightening in your chest, the loop in your head, that's a prediction system that can't find its footing. So this right here, this is what it looks like. The mind uses its mental map to predict what's about to happen. The brain, based on that prediction, it sends signals through nerves and hormones to prepare the body. Your cells respond. Heart rate shifts, muscle tenses, energy releases. The feeling. You feel what your body is doing, but the feeling is shaped by what your body expected. The confirmation. Your brain treats those feelings as proof that the prediction was right. The loop closes, the belief becomes a fact you can feel. And it does this for almost everything that matters. How a drug will affect you, how stressful a situation is, how full you should feel after a meal, how threatening a challenge is. Here's something that actually might click into place now. If you've ever done CBT or know someone who's done CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, you probably notice it works. The therapist helps you challenge a belief at the top. I'm not lovable, I'm going to fail. And slowly the cascade down changes. CBT mostly works top down, I'm simplifying. It targets prediction. Now, somatic therapies work the opposite direction. It targets the body, the felt reality coming up from the nervous system. Essentially change what the body is reporting, and the prediction up top has to update. Again, I'm simplifying here, but two therapies that look like complete opposites, both changing what the storyteller predicts. All right, really quickly, before I show you the final piece, this video is brought to you by me, because there's no sponsors yet, but a really quick introduction. Think of everything you need to understand about life as a giant puzzle. Self-help gives you 1,000 random pieces. Education skips the puzzle entirely. What I'm doing here is taking the most consistent ideas across hundreds of books, researchers, and thinkers, organizing them around the areas of life we all have to navigate, and building just the border, the foundational concepts that give shape to everything else, so you can explore life on your own terms. Okay, now for the final piece. Remember in the beginning of the video I said, so initially I went looking for what was underneath all of this. But what I found was one of the 4 critical ideas you need to understand human life. Because we live in groups, we live in cities with millions of strangers, and that raises a question. How do you get all of these strangers to work together? This is the most common element on Earth, carbon. Compress it under enough pressure and you get a diamond. Diamonds aren't rare, but in the 1930s, one company ran an advertising campaign with a single story. A diamond is how you prove your love.
The diamond engagement ring. How else could 2 months' salary last forever? A diamond is forever. De Beers.
Before the campaign, diamonds weren't the symbol for commitment, but enough minds adopted the story, and now people spend months of their salary on a piece of carbon because the shared belief says that's what an engagement ring requires. And if you ever try to resell the diamond, you find out it's actually worth a fraction of what you paid. Now look at this. You can't eat it, you can't build shelter with it, but billions of minds share the same prediction, that this paper can be exchanged for things that do keep you alive. So it works. And yes, there are governments and laws and entire economies reinforcing that belief, but those are also shared beliefs. A government is a shared belief about who has authority. A law is a shared belief about what's enforceable. And you keep pulling at the thread and its beliefs all the way down. Nova Harari explains why in Sapiens. Humans are the only species that has flexible cooperation at a massive scale. Shared belief is the thing that makes that possible. Stories that enough minds agree to treat as real. Diamonds, money, laws, nations, all of it. Beliefs creating stories, stories creating predictions, predictions running across millions of minds. And that means something important. If a shared belief built it, a shift in shared belief can change it. There was a time when slavery was accepted across much of the world. It was held up by laws, economies, entire institutions. But underneath all of that was a story, a shared prediction about who counted as fully human and who didn't. Sometimes the story was, these people are property, and sometimes it was, these people are lesser. The details change across cultures, but the function was the same. A shared belief that made the system feel normal and obvious. And then, slowly, people started running a different prediction. It didn't happen overnight, but as more people updated the story, laws followed, institutions followed. But an entire civilization, once accepted as normal, became unthinkable. When the belief moved, everything built on top of it moved as well. Some of you remember ashtrays in restaurants and smoking sections on airplanes. If you're around 30, you grew up being told never get inside a stranger's car, never meet someone from the internet, never share your real name online. If you're around 20, you're watching the conversation around mental health change in real time. 3 separate generations, same pattern every time. Smoking was always harmful. The science existed for decades, but the shared belief hadn't caught up yet. Strangers online were never all dangerous, and the belief slowly updated, and suddenly we're getting into strangers' cars, sleeping in strangers' homes, swiping on strangers' faces. That's what's easy to miss. Belief isn't just something that's happening inside of you. It's the building material of the world that we walk through every day. So when we talk about belief, it isn't religion. It isn't motivation. It is the lens your mind is predicting reality through every second in everything you experience. From the hormones in your blood to the choices that shape your years, to the money in your pocket to the laws of your country, which means the world you live in is the one your mind is predicting, and the world we share is the one we're all predicting together. If you want either of those to change, the underlying belief has to change. New information, held honestly, even when it makes us uncomfortable. Because the mind updates when new information lands. The world updates when enough minds update together. Now that you see it, you get to decide what to do with it. A really quick introduction.